Right, that was an interesting start to the Olympics, to say the least. Obviously, we had every team play one game yet, and Group A, unsurprisingly, or maybe surprisingly so, after the first game already, looks exactly like you would have predicted it to look at the end of it. Australia, India, Argentina, Spain, New Zealand, Japan. Such are the rankings, but it's fair to say that Japan and even New Zealand certainly did not deserve to lose. Neither did their opponents. So I want to talk about Japan first because we can discuss New Zealand, India, we can discuss Australia, we can discuss the draw between Argentina and Spain. And though some of the points that you would think I will make or that you have perhaps thought of are obvious, um, there's some other points to be made that I perhaps did not accentuate enough in the previous video, and that now I see and really bring something else to the teams uh, of which I'm talking about. So I want to start with Japan, and Japan, surprisingly so perhaps, looked like a team that did not have to that qualified for the Olympics. And what I mean by that is obviously in 2016 you had Brazil who automatically qualified as the hosts, but Japan here, if you told me that or if I didn't know any better, I would have thought they deserved to be at the Olympics. They qualified, they beat great teams to get to the Olympics, and they're not just there because they're the host. And they proved that they are not just there as the host. Obviously, leading Australia 3-2 midway through the game is a great thing for that country, and I think it was a great show of intent from Siegfried Eichmann and his players. Again, like I said last video, Japan is there not only to fill the numbers, but also to prove that they can hang with the better teams, that they are making strides forward in their hockey and in their just in general in more than one or two different sports. And I was obviously happy to see Australia win because I ultimately want the best teams to go through, and I want to see the best matchups. I want to see Australia versus Belgium, Australia versus Germany, India versus Netherlands. But it would be nice to see Japan get a point against South Africa or Great Britain or maybe even India or Argentina. And if we look at last game between Japan and Australia, it's definitely a possibility. However, for Australia, the talent that that squad has is just mind-boggling. Five different goal scorers, and though one can say, "Oh, there's not anyone that stands out," they don't need to have anyone that stands out. When you have five different goal scorers, five different players are on form already. Five different players have uh, have left the starting blocks from the get-go. It's a very good start from Australia. Obviously, defensively, they need to be more tidy. They need to tidy up because against teams like Argentina, against teams perhaps like India, New Zealand, and even Spain, even though Argentina and Spain weren't very good, they will get punished. For lack of a better term, they will absolutely get punished. But if we look at the rest of the group, New Zealand, India, there's no real surprise there. India came on top as the winners. However, New Zealand led the game early on. Uh, India pulled it back. But it'll be very interesting to see what New Zealand does because Argentina and Spain shared the points 1-1. And I wasn't very impressed with either team. Spain isn't the team that they used to be a few years ago when they finished runners up at the European Hockey Championships. Argentina certainly isn't the team that won the Olympic gold 5 years ago. And New Zealand can definitely do something here. They can do some damage in the next few games. The next game for New Zealand is against Spain, so that's going to be a hugely important one. However, if Spain wins, New Zealand absolutely needs to beat Argentina. Is that going to happen? I'm not sure. If New Zealand wins, then the cards are off the table. It could be that New Zealand finishes third. It could be that Argentina finishes third. Spain could finish third. I am secretly, not very secretly, hoping for a New Zealand win over Spain, obviously, to make it more interesting at the bottom of the table. But we also have India versus Australia next game, which is the game that will likely decide who finishes first in this group. It's going to be a very interesting game. However, I cannot predict who wins this. I would have said Australia, but looking at their defensive frailties now, India can definitely score. But then again, New Zealand scored 2 against India, and Australia still managed to score 5 against Japan. So it's not a given who's going to win. But the group is looking very open, and that's a great thing for Group A. For Group B now, there's no real surprise, but GB looked perhaps not as secure as they would have hoped. So obviously there was the game between the Netherlands and Belgium, which Belgium won 3-1 after a hat-trick from Hendrickx, 2 on a penalty corner, 1 on a penalty stroke. The Netherlands led the game after 35 minutes, but they just couldn't create enough offensively, or they did create a few opportunities, but Belgium just was too strong, and defensively the Netherlands need to tidy up. It's something that I have said in the previous video, and that I did say also in the European Championships. Offensively and in the midfield, the Netherlands is very strong. They've got players that can play in midfield or up front. They've got players in Schuurman that plays at the back or in midfield. So they're very interchangeable. However, they need to find their groove. They need to find the goal scorers. They need to find a way to score one and then continue scoring and not just dry up for the rest of the game. It took them 35 minutes to get that first goal. You get that goal, you make sure you go to halftime or to the end of the quarter, whenever you score, without conceding, and then you tidy up a few things at the back, and you try a counter, or you try to play for the set pieces, something like that. Belgium played for the set pieces, and they got the win. Now the next game was Great Britain against South Africa, and although the score says 3-1, it wasn't as easy as the score might indicate for Great Britain. Obviously, South Africa scored after 4 minutes, but Ward had scored after 2. It was already 1-1 after 4 minutes, and it promised to be a good game. But the problem with Great Britain, again, is they make stupid mistakes, as did South Africa this game. They made stupid mistakes, stupid cards that they took. South Africa took... There was a moment where South Africa had 2 yellow cards at the same time, and Britain had a green card. If you're Great Britain, don't get that green card. It's an 11 against 9. It's a perfect moment to capitalize, to get a goal or 2, or maybe even 3. But they didn't manage to capitalize on those mistakes. They made those mistakes themselves. And the next game for Great Britain, obviously, is against Canada. It's a game that they should win if they want to if they want to have any hopes of finishing higher than 4th, maybe finishing 2nd, 3rd, maybe even challenging for that first spot. They have to win against Canada. They have to get those mistakes out of their game. But it's not impossible, of course, because Canada against Germany, 7-1 for Germany. No surprises in that Germany won, but I am slightly surprised with the scoreline. I was expecting Canada to be stronger, to maybe be better, not give up that many opportunities and not concede that many goals. Yes, they're probably the weakest team along with South Africa in that group, but South Africa were able to hang with Great Britain. I'm not sure if Canada can do this based on how they play. Yes, they play Germany, which Germany is obviously one of the favorites for the tournament, but to lose 7-1 in the first game, again, it wasn't something that I said for Canada before. I don't remember exactly for whom I said it, but losing the first game by a big margin can be absolutely huge and can be detrimental for the morale, for the confidence, because Canada realistically could still finish 4th, but they would have to beat Great Britain, they would have to beat South Africa, they would have to hope that Great Britain doesn't get a good result against the other 3, being Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany. And although it doesn't look likely, anything can happen, obviously. We saw that with Great Britain getting to the final of the European Hockey Championships. But Germany, in terms of their goal scorers, much like Australia, it's a very promising sign. They've got 5 different goal scorers. Rowe and Windfeder got 2 each. And it's especially important that Windfeder got going, because at the European Hockey Championships, he just could not score from the penalty corner spot. Heine took over as the penalty corner guy at European Championships. He scored a few, but just not enough. Windfeder got going this game immediately after 11 minutes already. And it's a great sign for Germany. If they have a penalty corner, they know now they can rely on guys like Windfeder, on guys like Heine, maybe even someone else, Hersbruck if needed. It's a great sign, but we'll see what happens. The next game for Germany is against Belgium. It's going to be a very important game, much like India versus Australia, but I have no idea what is going to happen. It's the first game of the Olympics. They tell you only part of the story. We only get to the real story once we're at game 4, game 5, and into the elimination phases. So that's it for this video. I'll be back tomorrow, obviously, with another video on those games. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you later.